From the nation's capital, the Conservative Caucus presents Conservative Roundtable, an in-depth look at today's most important issues.
Welcome to Conservative Roundtable. I'm Howard Phillips. We're pleased to have as our guest for this broadcast a distinguished American patriot by the name of William C. Triplett II. Bill Triplett is the co-author of a very important book called Year of the Rat, published by Regnery Publishing. He served previously as Chief Republican Counsel to the United States Senate Foreign Relations Committee, and he was on the staff of the Executive Office of the President during the administration of Ronald Reagan. There's more I could say, but let's cut to the chase. Bill, I think you have done as much as anyone to alert the American people to the growing threat to our national security posed by Communist China. How did this get onto your radar screen?
Well, I'm really the China specialist for the Congress, so I have been doing this for over 30 years. So the question of China has been part of my life for a very long time. But as you begin to look at this, and you look at what communism has done in China and how this is going to affect us now and in the future, you can't avoid becoming part of it. In the first place, of course, the Chinese army killed the kids at Tian'anmen Square almost exactly 10 years ago.
How many people were killed?
I would guess about 4,000. And we talk about patriots, and we think of American patriots. They were patriots too. I mean, they were trying to free their country to give themselves a democratic China. So you look at that, then you start looking at all of the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction that the communists are selling to places like Gaddafi's Libya or Iran or Syria or one of those places. And then they start threatening Taiwan and our friends there. And then now, of course, the big thing is they're engaged in this massive military buildup with our technology and our equipment and so forth and so on to the next century, which is, 8 months away.
How can a reasonable person not conclude that the Chinese are at least a serious potential threat to the United States? How can there be members of the United States Senate who dismiss that, who are impervious to issues involving espionage, saying that we're going to change China by trading with them. We're going to change China by sending them more of our industry. By taking their goods into the United States with a 3% tariff, while they put 30 or 40% on our goods going into their country. How can responsible people be so, is naive the word, unknowing, undiscerning? How can senators and congressmen continue to support MFN for Red China? How can they continue to go along with Bill Clinton's concept of a strategic partnership? How can they look the other way when it's clear that this administration has swept under the rug some serious breaches of security?
I don't understand it myself. All I can tell you is certainly that's not what President Reagan did to defeat the Soviet Union. President Reagan came into power, you know about it, you were part of it, and the whole idea was to beat him. We didn't come into power in 1981 to contain communism. We came into power to destroy it. Now you look at communism in China, it's no different. The people just happen to live in China.
Well,
it's the same communism.
What is different is that they're more economically viable than the Soviet Union ever was.
That's certainly true to that extent. And one of the problems, frankly, is that some of that money ends up directly or indirectly in the hands of former American politicians.
They hire people like Henry Kissinger and Al Haig, and you have the situation to which you alluded before the broadcast of decision makers in the administration being pressured by people who are perceived to be at a very high level to pursue policies that are favorable to the Communist Chinese regime.
That's right. When we were working on the Soviet Union in the early 1980s, you didn't have a situation where former secretaries of state would call you up on behalf of Moscow. You didn't have that problem. Now you have the problem of former secretaries of state calling up members of Congress and senators in essence promoting Beijing's policy. Also, of course, downtown, you can't avoid it. The fact of the matter is the national security advisor for Mr. Clinton, and that is Mr. Berger, was in essence the chief lobbyist for the Chinese Trade Office on Capitol Hill. He used to make the rounds on Capitol Hill and lobby people.
So he was an employee of the People's Liberation Army of China, in effect.
A couple of steps back.
A couple of steps removed.
But that's essentially what you're talking about.
And no one has been more recklessly negligent in failing to follow up on clear evidence of espionage than Mr. Berger.
That's certainly true. I'm not sort of recklessly negligent gives the man the benefit of the doubt. I mean, what happens if you are the official and I come to you...
Intentionally complicit is another way of putting it.
Right, and I come to you, let's suppose I come to you and I say, they're stealing us blind, it's still going on, and what happens? You manage to get me demoted. I mean, is that recklessness or is that complicity? Looks more like complicity to me.
Well, we've heard that China is seeking to emulate the Russians, who have a listening post in Lourdes, Cuba, and there are now reports that China is seeking to build an intelligence post in Cuba, and that the Cuban government has gone along with that, quite predictably. And we've seen growing communist influence at the Isthmus of Panama. Ridiculously, the United States is withdrawing its military presence, withdrawing its troops from the Isthmus at a time when there are some 100,000 Chinese nationals inside Panama, and at a time when they are benefiting from a deal which I believe was corruptly negotiated to give them control of the ports at both ends of the Panama Canal. Is there no one in Congress alarmed by this and willing to do something about it?
There are some people. Certainly, Senator Inhofe of Oklahoma, I would put in the category of being a patriot. He is the one, particularly, who's concerned about the issue of the company Costco taking over the Navy port in Southern California. In that case, Costco, we're worried about them establishing a listening post in America. I mean, it's bad enough to have such a thing in Cuba, but Costco would put up antennas to, in theory, talk to its ships at sea, but they could intercept our communications in Southern California without any trouble at all.
Bill, why don't you review for us what has been learned about Chinese communist espionage? What did they take from us at Los Alamos and elsewhere, and what is the consequence of their intelligence theft?
I would say they have taken, in essence, our sunrise technology. That is, we talk about sunset technology, the old stuff. They took the sunrise technology. They took the new stuff, the best we had, the stuff we intend to depend on into the 21st century. They took all of the things having to do with nuclear weapons, of course, and also having to do with missiles and so forth and so on. And then exotic things like rail guns, where you have an electronic pulse. It's almost sort of like a ray gun, if you will, that's a weapon. The list goes on and on. I think when the Cox report comes out, people are going to say, well, the penetration was total, and they won't be exaggerating.
What does that portend for the defense of the United States? What will we have to do in an effort to undo the damage which has been done? And let me just reemphasize what you said. The loss has been total.
Right.
They're in a position to either neutralize or to replicate everything that we had planned to update our defenses. And as a result, we're naked before them militarily.
That's right. You want to sort of look at this in three parts. First, you've got the espionage of the information itself, okay? Then the next thing you have also is, don't forget, we sold them something in the order of 200 supercomputers. So they have more supercomputers than the Pentagon has. So you can take the information and you can run it through our computer. Then the next stage is, remember, they bought for 10 cents on the dollar all of these super machine tools that were at the McDonnell Douglas plant in Ohio. So now they can replicate, because these machine tools are computer controlled, they can replicate what what our information tells our computers and our machine tools can make it. And so you put it all three together, and we're out of business.
A famous philosopher once said, whenever something looks like a conspiracy, consider the fact that it may be incompetence. But I personally think this is a lot more than incompetence. How can so many people in positions of responsibility fail to see what's going on and act on it? Secretaries of Energy, Secretaries of Defense, Secretaries of State, Directors of OMB, National Security Advisors, a President. How can this be ignored to the point of disaster?
When you're talking about the Clinton administration, which is what we're talking about here, it's always a problem. Are you dealing with incompetence or corruption or some sort of combination of the two? Or treason. Well, that's right. That's what I mean by corruption, of course. I don't see how you avoid this. You end up, you trace the thing back, as we did in Year of the Rat, and you discover, here comes the money trail, okay? And the people who are giving the money are not a public charity. They want something back. So here comes the money. There goes our secrets this way. There goes our machine tools this way. There goes our supercomputers that way. All ends up in the hands of the Chinese army. Now, I don't see how you can say that's just a series of, circumstances.
Do you have any personal expectations as to whether a direct correlation between contributions to Clinton and decisions favoring Communist China will be connected?
I have some hope. In the Year of the Rat, we make a chart, and we show 10 lines, what we call in the intelligence business operations, separate operations coming in to Clinton Gore, all essentially from the same source, from Chinese military intelligence. And Johnny Chung has, of course, testified and confirmed one of these. And he says that the others were there, too. So this is the money line. Okay?
Hold that thought. And after these messages, I'll be back with Bill Triplett, author of The Year of the Rat, to discuss communist Chinese espionage in the United States. Stay with us. Hi, I'm Howard Phillips, chairman of the Conservative Caucus. I'm inviting you to learn more about the Conservative Caucus, a grassroots public policy action organization that was founded in 1974. Whether you're opposed to socialized medicine, interested in making Congress more accountable, stopping the New World Order, fighting gun control, reducing taxes, or restoring America to its biblical premises and constitutional boundaries, we're the organization you're looking for. Please call the number on your screen to get more information about our work.
For more information, write the Conservative Caucus, 450 Maple Avenue East, Vienna, Virginia, 22180, or call 703-938-9626. Here's how you can become a citizen lobbyist and influence how your representatives vote. Write a letter to your congressmen and senators. Speak out on a call-in talk radio program. Write a letter to the editor of your local newspaper, and call the Conservative Caucus for more information at 703-938-9626.
Welcome back. I'm Howard Phillips. Our guest is William Triplett, author of a very important book, Year of the Rat. I urge you to look for it at your bookstore, and if it's not there, to ask them why not and when they're going to have it for you. Bill, how did you get started writing The Year of the Rat? What led you to do it?
My colleague and I were just angry, frankly, because we thought the press was going to chase the Monica Lewinsky issue, and we thought the national security of the United States was far more important.
Treason trumps adultery.
You bet. And we thought, frankly, that no one else was going to do this, and it turned out to be true. There's no competitor out there to compare our book against another one. We thought it was very important.
What is the role of the First Lady in all of this?
Well, the First Lady appears in a chapter essentially all of her own. We call it the Week That Was. And we argue that the First Lady, for a corrupt purpose, put a Chinese spy into the Commerce Department.
Do you think it was an ideologically corrupt purpose or one that merely served to advance her financial interests?
I think basically it had to do with covering up of prior crimes. It's sort of, when you look at the Clintons, they're always trying to advance themselves in some election, but they always have to cover up what they've done before. So you have this sort of trail going on at the same time. They're raising money for the next event and also raising money to pay off people and obstruct justice on what's happened before.
What about Al Gore? To what extent has he been complicit in taking money from ranking or not ranking, taking money from the Communist Chinese?
He's in it up to his neck. There's a picture in Year of the Rat, and if this is the table, he's sitting at the table. There's a Chinese agent at this end, there's a Chinese agent at that end, and there is a Buddhist master sitting here who was laundering money for the Democrats for years.
Now, a lot of this money that has come into the United States has come directly from a top man in the People's Liberation Army.
That's right.
Who not only has provided the money, he's been the recipient of the secrets.
That's right. You find the same general who put $300,000 into the system for Johnny Chung is also the man who receives the espionage from New Mexico and Los Alamos and so forth. He's also the same man who is in charge of sending Chinese generals to the United States for training. I mean, I don't think people understand that a whole series of Chinese generals are coming here at taxpayers' expense, and we are training them modern warfighting capability. For example, the very general who gave the mount up and move out order 10 years ago to kill the Chinese young people at Tian'anmen Square, they brought him here. You and I paid for it, and the viewers paid for it, taxpayers. And at the end of this time, to make him happy, we gave him a Hawaii vacation.
Well, if that's all we had given, I'd be less concerned than the fact that we've given him access to our greatest secrets. And then you've got a situation where one of these key players was the very person who threatened to bomb Los Angeles with nuclear weapons if we pursued a policy in the Straits of Taiwan that was not congenial to the Chinese Communist government.
Absolutely. The same guy, the same Chinese general who put the money in is the same man who threatened to incinerate Los Angeles because we seem to like democracy in Taiwan. And he's also the same man who is receiving the espionage, and he is the same man who is working on the military-to-military relationship.
I don't think most Americans realize how important an independent Taiwan, independent from the control of Beijing, is to our own security. Douglas MacArthur used to say that Formosa is like a giant aircraft carrier floating in the Pacific. As long as Communist China does not control Taiwan, there are limits to what they can do going on the offensive because we are well positioned to limit their aggression. But if they absorb Taiwan, it makes the United States and all of our friends infinitely more vulnerable.
There's no question about that. In the first place, that means communism will have taken a democracy off the table like a major chess piece. The second item is there's a chain of democratic countries that begin with Japan, go through South Korea, go Taiwan, the Philippines, go all the way around into the Indian Ocean, and this chain depends on us. We are the leader of the democratic alliance in the world, and if you pull one of these pieces of the chain out in the middle of it, the chain itself can't function.
Well, you have a situation now where the Chinese are aggressively pressing claims of sovereign control over key areas. I recall during the Reagan years, I was very disappointed that the Reagan administration did not challenge the claims of Red China to control of the oil deposits in the South China Sea. I thought that was a devastating decision, and they were under pressure from Chevron and other American oil companies that wanted a short-term piece of the action, and in return, they gave up something very valuable. Now we see that the Communist Chinese are asserting sovereignty over the Spratly Islands,
right,
to which the Philippines and others have what many would view as a prior and superior claim. But since Communist China is the big kid on the block, and America, when it comes to defending its national interest, is increasingly seen as a paper tiger, there doesn't seem to be any real resistance to this Communist Chinese strategy.
It's astonishing to me. Not only do you have the whole question of the oil deposits, but 400 ships a day go right through that part of the world. And if you stop those shipping lanes, you take out 60% of Japan's energy needs.
Well, a famous geostrategist of many decades ago, Mr. Mackinder, talked about things like choke points.
Sure.
He talked about things like sea lanes. Our politicians and even our military seem to be woefully unaware of these elemental concepts of national security. One of the things that the Chinese have to know is that with the U.S. Navy cut in half from some 600 ships under John Lehman and Ronald Reagan to 321 or whatever it is today, in time of war, if the Panama Canal is closed, our ability to keep our logistics open and to accomplish other purposes is much diminished. Yet, again, no one seems to be moving to keep the Chinese out of Panama and to keep the United States in. What is it going to take to wake up our countrymen?
I think basically it's going to take your viewers getting involved in this. It is not going to come down from the top. It's going to come from the bottom up. One of the things that I have discovered is there apparently is no American aircraft carrier in the Pacific for the first time in 40 years.
At a time when North Korea is a great uncertainty, to put it mildly.
Oh, absolutely.
And when Red China could use the blow-up of the mission in Yugoslavia as a pretext for action. Let's just take a minute to talk about that. What is your feeling about the attack on the Chinese embassy? Was it intentional on the part of anyone? If it was an accident, how can that kind of incompetence be explained?
Of course, when you're talking about the Clintons, you can never rule out incompetence. I mean, that's the problem. It's hard to imagine, really, that you would be dropping bombs into a European city at this point in history, essentially on the basis of a 4-year-old AAA map. The question is, was it intentional, and if so, by whom? I find it hard to imagine that the White House itself would have been involved in any kind of intentional business because the White House is so pro-Beijing. It's possible that someone else may have done this. It's fairly widely known in the national security community that the Chinese have monitoring posts and listening posts, and that they assist the Yugoslavs with what they pick up. Whether someone deliberately decided to take out one of those posts, it's hard to say. I mean, we all know that the Chinese embassy is a center for espionage and spying. Maybe it was an accident. Maybe somebody decided, well, I'm going to take one out.
Is it credible to assume that they don't check their maps every couple of years?
Well, it's not just a question of the maps, but it's a question of there were Americans all over Belgrade. Anyone who sat down and looked at this, who had been in Belgrade, I've been in Belgrade,
so have I.
would know what is on what side of the street.
We're going to have to take a break. When we come back, I'm going to ask Bill Triplett to give us a quick review of what the Chinese have actually stolen from the United States of America. Please stay with us.
In every major war of the 20th century, control of the Panama Canal has been strategically crucial to America's military. Now the great U.S. Navy is no longer a two-ocean navy, and the Red Chinese military knows very well that control of the isthmus is more important than ever. That's why Red China now seeks control of the two crucial ports on each side of the Panama Canal. If Congress fails to give our military the funds to maintain U.S. bases in Panama, Red China will fill the vacuum, giving a communist superpower a hammerlock grip on the path between the seas. Right now, there's no money in the defense budget to keep our U.S. bases in Panama. And even as we reduce our defense spending, Red China boosts theirs with $40 billion each year coming from us as the result of MFN, Most Favored Nation status. We the people, along with our leaders in Congress and at the White House, have a duty to preserve, protect, and defend America's vital interest.
Welcome back. I'm Howard Phillips. Our guest has been Bill Triplett, author of Year of the Rat. If you want more information about this extremely important book, please contact the number on your screen. And if you are interested in checking out the website of the Conservative Caucus, www.conservativeusa.org, you'll find information about many of the issues we've been discussing. Bill, before you give us a quick summary of what Red China has stolen from us, talk to us about North Korea.
I think North Korea and China is going to be the next hot button item in Washington. I think people are going to discover that there's a lot closer cooperation between the Chinese military and the North Korean missile guys, the same ones who export missiles to the Middle East, and I think that's going to be the next hot issue.
Okay, let's move on and summarize in the minute we have left what China has received from the United States.
What they
stolen.
Well, received or stolen. What they have received from us is first our first line of defense. That's the principal thing. They got all of the information they need with regard to our strategic weaponry. They got the missiles. They got the nuclear weapons. They got the things that we're working on and that we haven't even deployed yet in the 21st century.
And they now have acquired the capability of perfecting multiple independently targeted reentry vehicles.
That's right.
From us. We've really appreciated your work on Capitol Hill, Bill. We are grateful for your book, and I thank you for taking the time to brief our listeners.
Thank you very much for having me.
Look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on Conservative Roundtable.